Welcome to the PokerRoad Radio Show, hosted by Gavin Smith, Joe Seabach, and Bart Hansen. PokerRoad Radio is the only poker radio show syndicated by the American Penal System Radio Network.
And we are here once again on a Tuesday, day number 3 of the North American Poker Championship from the Fallsview Casino and Resort in Niagara Falls, Ontario. Gentlemen, I'm Bart Hansen here with Gavin Smith and Geraldes Vulgaris. We've got some interesting happenings here. We've got 79 people left. Total prize pool was $4.86 million Canadian. So I'm assuming that's about, $5 million US? At least $5 million US. First prize is going to take down over $1.3 million. First place right now, a gentleman I am not familiar with, Kofi Farkey. Do you guys have any experience with this guy?
No.
404,900 in chips. So do we assume that he got in through some sort of satellite?
I don't think we can necessarily assume that, but
No.
we don't know who he is.
We can assume he's probably not a tournament regular, seeing as how we've never seen his name before. That's probably about
I mean,
it.
how often does this happen that we see a guy up on top after day 3 that no one's ever heard of?
It used to happen almost every week.
17%.
Really?
Gavin's a mathematician on
Seems
the
like
show.
17%.
I mean, do you just not give any of these guys credit? Guys
No.
that you don't know?
No?
It's tough to give someone credit when you don't know, when you haven't played with him and you don't know who he is. I mean, if we had we said, oh, yeah, I played with him, he's pretty good, but none of us even know who he is.
I mean, if you're going to throw out a name that nobody knows, I mean, your first guess is that he's probably not
Actually,
that great.
Yeah,
but
what
I mean,
about these other guys? I mean, Cassidy's in second place here. What about these other guys?
four of the top 5 people are people who A, I cannot pronounce their names, and B, I've never heard of.
Who are they?
Giuseppe Galuzzo, I guess I can pronounce that. He's got 321,700. Arunula Yamasi has 306,000. I'm guessing one of my brethren here, Harry Tsoukalos, has 302,000.
Oh, you don't want to be a guy playing a major poker tournament and have your name be Harry Too Close.
No,
Right?
it's
That'd be terrible.
Harry Too Close. Yeah.
Well, of course, I mean, Joe Cassidy, I mean, he's a name. I mean,
Yeah, he's in second place. He's sandwiched in the unknowns.
is he somebody that, again, he's probably the most experienced. Ooh, what's still
This
going on
fucking
here?
thing sucks, Firth.
I don't know what's going on.
You lick balls.
That's true.
Should we just continue?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right.
It's recording fine.
Okay.
It's all in your ear. It's separate. It's a separate issue.
It's a separate fuck up on your part.
Yes.
Okay. I'm having a fuck up here, too, with my computer. Anyway, so Joe Cassidy here. Joe Cassidy in second place. I mean, kind of a young, aggressive player. I mean, do you think he's going to be the favorite going in, or is it just too early to tell right now?
It's definitely too early to
It's
tell.
way too early. With 79 people left, I mean, it's still hugely possible that the chip leader might not make the money. I mean, there's
How
a lot
many
of
people
poker.
make the money?
Like 45, I think.
It'd be very unlikely for the chip leader not to make the money. I would actually take a bet that the guy will make the money if you want. If you want to lay me something, I'll take a bet.
Oh yeah, of course you'll take that bet. But I mean, we were in Atlantic City a few weeks ago, and we were out to dinner the night before. Myself with Jeff Madsen. Jeff Madsen had 700,000 in chips. He was chip leader by a mile. I was second in chips with like 410.
Yeah.
And Jeff Madsen at dinner was like, I think there's no. We're talking about making the money. He goes, I think there's no chance that I could ever miss the money. We're 27 people left and 18 make the money. Because I don't think there's any chance I could ever miss the money. I'm like, Kerry, you shouldn't talk like that. We get back, one of the very first hands, he doubles up a guy with 300,000. He's back down to normal. When we got to the bubble, Jeff had like 80,000 left.
This is the tournament I played in?
No, this was the, yeah. You were there in Atlantic City, right?
The Borgata?
No, Tosh.
Oh, no, I wasn't there.
Okay, then you weren't at the Tosh. So anyways, but when we got to the bubble, Jeff had 80,000 chips and he was one of the shortest stacks, and he easily could have missed the money. I mean, I'm not saying it's likely, but it's just, you get in a hand with another guy that's got chips, and all of a sudden you're one of the shorter guys again.
Now, for you guys, I'm sure it doesn't make that much of a difference, but this is the day of the bubble, so when you're playing in tournaments, you're not thinking about making a cash, right?
Definitely doesn't make any difference to us today when we're sitting here. The day the bubble has no relevance to us right now.
I'm going to totally play without any pressure whatsoever when they get to the bubble today.
Yeah, I'm going to feel pretty good about things when I'm boarding my plane back to Los Angeles on the day of the bubble.
Some of these guys that we don't recognize, though, I mean, are they squeezers? Do you notice some of these guys that they'll play extra tight? You can take advantage of that in spots when you do have a lot of chips around the bubble.
I don't know. I don't think that even the most inexperienced people, I don't think will play super tight if they have a lot of chips.
Right. If they have a lot of chips, it's
but
when you.
It's the people that are short that could easily miss it that will play very tight.
Mm-hmm.
And you can take advantage of those people.
Of course.
Yes.
Just raise them up in the blind and such.
Yes.
Pretty much. I mean, I remember in the main event at the bubble.
I love Bart, you can take advantage of that, right? You just raise them up in the blinds and such. He says, yeah, that's what you do. You raise them up. You raise up the blinds. That's
I remember in
in
the main event on day 3, the bubble took. I mean, it took 2.5 hours. They actually added an extra level.
Yeah.
To because there was so much delay, slow play, stalling in the play. I mean, that doesn't go on as much here in the WPT.
It does.
It does. It takes longer at the World Series because you have 70 tables.
Yeah, more tables.
Right? And you're going hand for hand, and it takes a long time for 70 tables to get done. Here, you're going to have 5 tables. Right? So it's going to take a lot less time to do the bubble than it will there.
One of the other things we talked about, Bobby Blonde, of course, Survivor China contestant. Jean Robert. He's actually sticking around, not in the top 10. He's got over 200,000 in chips.
He went down to like 80-something.
Yeah, he went down, and then he went back up, and you guys were talking about how he kind of has that day 2 blow up.
I wasn't saying anything like that.
I don't recall saying anything about a blow up.
Who were we talking about? We were talking about someone else.
He has
yesterday, maybe were we talking about that?
I think I think what we said is that he has a never get there in tournaments blow up, not just a day 2. It could be any day.
Yeah, I think we all know Jean Robert's a very solid, fundamental player.
So if he does get to this point, he can be a factor.
I'm hoping Jean Robert does well. He's been around long enough.
He is a huge dog to be a factor in this tournament.
Put it bluntly. Even if he is in the top 15. Of course, a lot of the online players, especially some of the ones that are underage in the U.S. that have played here, didn't have great days yesterday. A Juglin got busted out. Sammy.
Who's A Juglin?
That's Adam Juglin.
Okay. Who's Adam Juglin?
These are big names in the online world.
Okay. I don't know. I never.
Tim
Court, you would. I
T-May,
guess Court would
420.
know, right? I know who Tim T-May is.
Snagglepuss got knocked out.
Good old Snagglepuss.
Snagglepuss. Oh.
Snagglepuss
that guy's intimidating. That Snagglepuss is an intimidating
He was one of the
force.
whistleblowers in the Absolute thing, wasn't he? With Nat?
That's interesting.
Yeah. And a lot of the other online guys are fairly short in chips. Do you think this has something to do with just a patience level?
No, I think it's tough to make any assumptions based on one tournament. I don't know. I had never heard of some of these guys before, but I mean, if they're good players, I think it's sooner or later they'll make it to a final. I guess some of them maybe have. Have any of these guys made a final table somewhere, like in Europe maybe or something?
Well, a couple of guys have made WPT final tables, and I'm not sure if all of them gone to EPT.
Snagglepuss, has he made any final?
I'm not sure if Snagglepuss has made it, but he's definitely had a lot of online showings. For sure.
Okay.
Don't mess with Snagglepuss.
No, you definitely don't want. You don't want to get caught in the Snagglepuss.
He'll get you.
And one of the other guys I always see up here is Scott Clemens. It's absolutely amazing because I don't think the guy gets enough credit. I mean, he's got 2 World Series bracelets, right?
I think he gets a lot of credit.
Does he?
He's a good player.
It just doesn't seem like you hear that much about him in the mainstream media.
I don't really actually give very many people credit for being a good player, and he's a good player.
What do you mean when you say mainstream media? You mean us? Like this type of show? Or like a magazine?
Looking around like a card player, a bluff. I mean, he is featured sometimes in those, but I guess it's he won a WPT championship that was the Canadian Open that wasn't in the U.S.
Well, it wasn't a WPT though. It wasn't. It was.
Are you sure about that? I think it was a WPT, but it was
no,
on Canada.
You don't get it.
It was a preliminary event that was played in Canada. It wasn't.
It's not a WPT event. No.
It wasn't a 10,000.
No, it was
2,500.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. No, it just seems like
It was a televised event.
If he walks down, I guess the street, the general public doesn't know who he is. I mean, the
I
general
think
public doesn't know a lot of people, but
I bet you the general public doesn't know who Bart Hansen is either.
Well, do the general public know who Gavin Smith is?
In Mississippi, I'm big.
I think the general public on the tours at the bars know who Gavin Smith is.
They do. I'm very big in Mississippi.
Well, we're going to take a quick break. We had a lot of feedback, so we're going to go through a lot of emails, go through the hand of the day and the play of the day back here on PokerRoad Radio. And we are back here at the North American Poker Championship. day number 3. I'm Bart Hanson here with Gavin Smith and Bob Vulgaris. And right before we are actually filming this right before
We're
day 3 begins.
we're not filming.
We're recording this right before day 3 begins. Barry Greenstein came down and, of course, wanted to put his input in about yesterday's show and is talking about a hand that we had reported on against Bobby Ballon, where it said or we had mentioned that Bobby Ballon had 2 pair and Barry had flopped a set of 8s and won a big pot, but Barry actually got Bobby to commit almost 25,000 chips when Bobby raised with ace-9 under the gun, flopped an ace, Barry flopped the set, and
I think he said 50, didn't he?
50,000.
50,000.
I thought the total pot was 50,000.
No, he got him to put in. He bet 26,000 on the
Oh, yeah.
river.
Yeah, Bobby Ballon raised with ace-9 under the gun, came ace-rag. Barry had flopped a set of 8s. Bobby did not make aces up, and Barry got him to commit 50,000 with ace-9, which is pretty incredible.
Well, it's interesting hand because Bobby, when he calls the river, really
Has
can
to put
only
him on
beat
the
a bluff.
bluff,
That's all he can beat. He has to, and it's not necessarily the worst call in the world. I mean, he didn't think about it, which I always sort of. If you've got to make a call like that, you should probably be thinking about it a little bit. But, I mean, when Barry told the hand, it did come down ace-rag with 2 diamonds.
Yeah.
So, basically what Bobby has to put him on is a busted flush draw.
But maybe a diamond came on the end. We don't even know if
we
it
don't
did.
even know that's true.
One of the other things that Barry said, and I want to talk about it more, we're not going to do it this episode, is what I like to call a negative equity slow play, where the board that Barry said had come out, which was ace-8 rag with 2 diamonds. If Bobby has 10s or jacks there and checks it over to Barry, and Barry has bottom set, if Barry checks behind him, he is slow playing a hand where he might not get any further action unless a card comes on the turn that's beat. I see it all the time in cash games when you raise a hand like with ace-king, and the board comes out king-king-8. And the guy checks you and you've got ace-king and it's a rainbow board, and it's like, oh, okay, I'm going to slow play. Well, the guy's got pocket 5s. He is not going to give you any action. He is done with the hand unless he hits a 5. So you have to protect your hand there, right?
You should always bet bottom side, in my opinion.
Or a trips there with an ace kicker.
Yeah.
Something like that. We're going to move along here to hand of the day, and this was a hand between Dan Shack and Jeremiah Smith and a third player, and I found this interesting because it brings up a couple points. Midway through the day yesterday, seat 9 raises to 3,600. Dan Shack, who had 13,000 chips to start the hand, makes the call. Jeremiah Smith re-raises to 20,000 behind them, and both players call with Shaq calling all in. So Shaq calls an additional 10,000. Flop comes out 9-8 deuce. Smith shoves all in on the side for 64,000. Seat 9 goes into the tank for 3 minutes before finally calling on the side with pocket kings. Smith turns over ace-king of spades, and Shaq has 4-3 of hearts. Turn is a jack, river is the 6 of hearts, giving Shaq the main pot. And seat 9, a huge pot on the side with kings. Smith is eliminated, and Shaq is now up to 42,000.
You should mention the flop came 9 of hearts, 8, 2 hearts.
I just got it from the website.
No,
that's
no.
where I'm getting the updates from.
I'm
what was different about the hand?
Gus Hansen opened, and the
Yeah.
guy with kings, or the next guy to call, flat called, raised from Gus Hansen to like 3,500. Dan Shack then also flat calls, and then Jeremiah from the blind puts in a raise to, I think, 20K.
Okay.
Gus gets out of the way, and then the first flat caller that called Gus's raise then just also flat calls again, just the 20K, and then Dan Shack puts in what he's got left.
What's wrong?
Which
How does that
creates
make it that much different?
It's about the same. The only difference is now, instead
next to
rather than
30
there was 3 people, there was Gus Hansen in there first.
For a dead 3,600.
You don't think it changes the range of hands you put the first guy that flat calls on?
No, because the other guy only had 13,000 to start the hand.
The thing I want to talk about is how does Shaq
get all his money with 4-3
At what point does Shaq
hearts?
get all his money in with 4-3 of hearts? I mean, he's getting 3-1, but it's not a cash game; it's a tournament.
What are you doing when you have 13,000 chips calling 3,500?
Yeah,
with
Well, I
4-3
think he had.
hearts?
I think he had to call. He was probably the small blind. He probably had to only call 1,800 more.
Okay.
Because Jeremiah was the big blind, right?
Okay. What are you doing calling 1,800 more
horrible.
when you have 13,000 in chips with the 3-4 hearts?
It's horrible.
Well, and then the other thing too is that the guy Smith on the side,
Suited.
he shoves with ace king on the side, which is nothing. Now, is he trying to protect against a hand that he beats there on the side? It just didn't make any sense to me.
Well, yeah, he probably.
He's trying to get 10s to fold.
He's probably trying to get something to lay down. But this is a point that actually I talked to Jeremiah about. That ace king, I think ace king in particular out of position is one of the worst hands played. And I personally in a three-way pot, I don't even like the re-raise pre-flop with ace king.
I don't hardly ever re-raise
I think you're better off flat calling with it. But what I said to Jeremiah, he's very raw. This is one of his first main events that he's played, and what I said to Jeremiah is, if your intention is to miss this flop and to get all your chips in the pot, then maybe you ought to think about moving all in before the flop, right? And and then you're gonna get maximum fold equity. And then you can be done with the decisions. But if your main goal is to get all your chips in the pot here, then why are you waiting for the flop? Because this guy might have, say, 2 7s, right? And he's not going to call if you push him all in pre-flop, but he's certainly going to call if he hits a 7. And why give him that opportunity if your intention is to get all those chips in? With that action too, I mean, the guy with kings, it says it tanked for.
He took forever. He sat there for probably at least 5 minutes, and 5 minutes is a long time. They ended up Matt Kay, our guest yesterday, ended up actually calling the clock on him.
I mean, he's just afraid of aces there,
or a set.
Aces are set.
Aces are a set.
It's unlikely, like on a nondescript board that Jeremiah would have a set, because he'd probably check a set if he.
It's pretty bad though if you're going to call with kings to flop a set against aces. I mean, what is he thinking about now on the? Yeah, was he hoping it would just get checked down after he called? I mean, he's obviously, once he calls. My point to that is, if he's going to call the 20,000, he's going to call when you bet the flop unless an ace comes.
And the other reason why I picked this hand out too is because I thought with the Shaq thing, I think we all agree that the pre-flop call is probably wrong with his stack size. Now that he gets like 3.5 to 1, now we're midway through day 2. So the average was probably somewhere around 40 or 50,000. If he had folded, he would have had 10. Getting 3.5 to 1 against 2 other opponents, putting in your money there with 4-3 of hearts, just hoping to gamble.
I still think it's atrocious.
Well, I don't think anyone's confusing Dan Shack for being a good player.
I think that every chip he put into that pot, other than posting his small blind, was atrocious. I think everyone. I'm a big believer in not giving away your last chips in tournaments. I try to play ultra solid when I get short, and I just can never fathom, regardless of my price, putting my last 10,000 in chips in with the 3-4
That's pretty
hearts.
bad.
At what point do you stop calling with suited connectors too in tournaments? I mean, he's short.
Basically, my rule of thumb is I don't ever really want to be calling more than probably like 5 to 7% of my stack with speculation hands. Probably like 5%. Once I'm getting to the point where it's more than that, then I'm probably going to give up on my speculating and start trying to play a little more solid.
And you can't even do that but 10 times.
Right.
Until you're complete. I mean, you do that 10 times, you've lost 70% of your chips.
Does it go up to about 10% with pocket pairs? Trying to flop a set?
Well, that depends on how big my stack is. I mean, I'll call 10% of my stack if my stack is, 50,000 maybe. But once your stack is short to the point where you're probably, your move should be to get all your chips in, then you don't want to be calling 10%. Then it's a question of, what do I want to play for all my chips or not? I'm not going to just flat call once I'm getting shorter.
We're going to move on here to some emails and some feedback here. This comes from Matt Waldron, who's actually one of the Life's a Bluff guys and doing the comics for Living on the Poker Road. And he says he loves the show. Happy to have all you back on the air, especially Gavin. Quick question for you. What is the perfect mindset to be in when you sit down at the poker table for a cash game, for a tournament? Does it change? You obviously play in both. Is your mindset different when you sit down for one of these $10,000 tournaments as opposed to like a 50-100 no limit game?
Yeah, I think so. I think you have to take the tournaments a little bit. You have to have a different focus set for tournaments than you do in cash games. Like I think we talked about this the other day. In a cash game, you can kind of get up if you're not feeling it right then at that moment. Go for a walk around the casino, wander around. I'm a big wanderer when I'm playing cash games. But when I'm in a tournament, I'm pretty much locked into my seat and I don't really go anywhere. I think you just have to maintain that focus. You have to be willing to pretty much play as best as you can for the entire time. You can't take any hands off in a tournament. So
I don't really play cash, so I don't think I'm really the person to answer this question.
What is your mindset when you play a tournament?
When I play a tournament, I'm there entire, like my focus is there every hand, because you never know when something's going to happen in a hand that you're going to be able to use down the road. Exactly. And it's especially important to pay attention when you're not in a hand, although I'm in almost every hand, so that makes me have to pay attention. But for those people that actually play a little tighter and more normal than me, I think it's important for them to remember that just because you fold your cards doesn't mean you're out of that hand, because you never know when, Haralabos is going to do something that you're going to say, wow, I noticed this. And then you can look and you can see his hand and you can see, I think I picked up on something. I noticed something that he may do down the road. And, it could be the difference between you, winning this monster pot a little later on and not winning it. So
I think that's one of the things, too, especially that I felt when I started playing these $10,000 events. I played a couple of them in the World Series, is that in the cash games, I think you tend to zone out sometimes, right? And it's not that big of a deal if you're playing with the same players every single day. I mean, their tendencies, their patterns. You come in and you sit down with 9 other players and you have no idea who they are. You've never seen them play before. You're zoning out. You're missing out, right?
Absolutely. The people that are going to do the best, especially when a tournament starts, the people that are going to do the best right off the bat are the ones that are going to figure out their opponent's tendencies the quickest. The best players can assess their table quicker than other people and be able to find marginal opportunities to win chips.
I agree with that.
Yeah. We've got another email here from Paul Welsh. He says, "This is my instant favorite program on the internet. I believe that the parity in theory, in life, and poker between Barry and Gavin give the show exactly what it needs to propel the website into instant fame. I should mention that I'm more in line with Gavin's theory of life, but in poker, while I started as a lunatic, playing any hands from any position, trying to take away pots, after playing limit hold'em for a living, I find myself much more suited to play tighter, aggressive style in no limit hold'em tournaments. I have a couple of questions. I feel that I lost a little of my tournament edge after playing so much live cash. Is this a normal process for my growth before I can easily shift between my tournament and my cash games?"
You're looking at me, so you expect me to answer that question.
Well, I think that you play in, more cash games than Gavin.
I think that you have to have a different mindset, I think, for tournaments and for cash games. I think in cash games, I think we've said this a few times, you can take some hands off, and the intensity isn't always there. And I think in cash games, there's things like what you talked about, odds to flop a set. I think questions like that become very, very easy in a cash game. If you're getting the right implied odds to try and flop a set against someone, then you almost always do it in a tournament. You might feel like, I think in tournaments, especially as you get deeper, making hands doesn't become as important as stealing chips. Right. And it doesn't really matter if you flop a set, because a lot of times you don't need to have anything to win on the flop. You just need to bet on before the flop and make a bet on the flop. And it doesn't matter if you have a set or if you have nothing, because more often than not, you're going to win the pot. So I think that because of that, in tournaments, position and picking on people's blinds and attacking the blinds is a lot more important than it is in a cash game. In a cash game, it's not important at all.
Right. And I think it's really important to note too that if in cash games, your primary goal in the cash game is to get maximum value out of your hand. You want to make as much with your winning hands as you can possibly make. That should be your goal.
Your nut hands too, right?
Right.
Yeah.
In a tournament, that's not always true. In a tournament, it's far more important to not lose.
You want to protect your hand.
As much chips. It's more about protecting your stack and marginal growth than it is about getting the absolute maximum out of every hand.
I think too, one time I made a bet on the river in the main event where I kind of made my standard over bet with a hand that I knew was good, because I thought, well, this guy can call a smaller percentage of the time, but it's still going to be worth more chips in the long run when he does call than if I make a smaller bet. But are guys not willing to make a big call in a tournament because it's for their tournament life, especially if it puts them all in,
right?
As opposed to a cash game.
Yeah, there's definitely a different mindset for that. I think Gavin had mentioned that profiling players becomes a big edge in a tournament, and the person who does it quickest will have the biggest advantage early on in a tournament. And so you just have to determine, some people are willing to make the hero call in a tournament, and some people aren't. And you just have to make bets for different situations. You have to kind of try and milk as much as you can out of someone that isn't willing to go broke, and you kind of want to get as much as you can out of someone who is willing to go broke.
And there's a lot of times too in a tournament where you would have a hand. You might have a hand in a tournament where you're last to act. That in a cash game you would bet 100% of the time because you want to get value. But in a tournament, there's times that you would have hands like that you'll actually roll on the river, because all you're actually doing by betting this hand is opening up an opportunity for a person to bluff you.
Right.
Where it's going to put you in an uncomfortable spot. So a lot of times, where it looks like you should be for sure making a great value bet, the correct play is actually to check check behind the person on the river and not give them the opportunity to bluff you out of the spot.
Well, do you think there's value in betting the river when you know you're not going to get called so that you don't show your hand down so players can't
I do that a lot.
That's huge, but you have to pick your opponents to do it on.
Mm-hmm.
You want to make sure you're not doing it against a guy like Bobby Belonde, for instance, a lot of times, because this is a man that's willing to, just make this huge bluff on you on the river, a check raise bluff on the river. And you got to be careful about the guys you're doing this to, because all of a sudden you can get yourself in this spot where you're going to have to make the hero call, and those are hard calls to make.
Paul went on to say, Gavin and Joe previously had a show in Raw Vegas, and knowing Joe and Gavin's reputation, would they please do a special beer pong prop bet? This would not only be hilarious, but it would quite possibly be your YouTube launch off. Did you guys do something like that in the past?
We had a show in Raw Vegas called it was called Prop Bets, the Stupid Show, and we did stupid prop bets, and I think it's unlikely to come back, just because Joe's extremely busy with the Poker Road and doing other things, and I'm not sure that I want to do it with somebody else. So we won't do beer pong anyways because I don't like beer.
We are going to roll over here to Bobo with the play of the day. Here we go.
Hello, this is Bobo again. Another interesting hand today. As I was walking by a table, action comes all the way around to the button. The button folds. The small blind thinks. The big blind is William, Bill, the stunning one, Edler.
Whoa.
The small blind thinks some more, folds the hand. Bill Edler gets a walk, scoops in the pot. This has been Bobo with the play of the day.
Wow.
Well, thank you very much, Bobo.
That's fantastic. I think that just shows the force that William Bill Edler is in tournament poker, that, he obviously struck fear into this small blind and gave him a walk, and I think, you got to give Bill all the credit in the world for playing that hand as well as he did.
I just want to say I felt like, as he was describing, I felt like I was at the table.
It was an unbelievable
I thought I was
description
there.
that he gave.
That was great. That was great. Thanks, Bobo, man. That was
Thanks,
fantastic.
Bobo.
That was fantastic, Bobo.
Going to read one more email here. And again, we asked for feedback regarding the show, and we've gotten it. So this comes from Josh McMahon, and he says, Yo, guys, whichever combo of guys there is when this comes in, I just listened to the FBT episode where you asked for listener feedback. I like the show so far, with the Bear substituting for Seeb Mexican smuggling ass. Those shows are good, but they're in the mold of the circuit more than the mold of the Poker Wire Radio. While I like the circuit in my opinion, Poker Wire Radio was a more entertaining show with Stapes and Sound Effects Al making some of this funniest moments in radio entertainment ever. I know Bart isn't Stapes, but maybe you can get more funny back into the show with Seebach coming back. If you let him in on the next circuit stop. But overall, for the first shows, I would give you an A++. P.S. Get Eugene Todbro back on the show and keep the producers away from the end record button. The last interview with him was the best stuff ever. You guys rock. Good to hear you back on the air. Thank you very much, Josh. And did get word that we are going to be having sound effects coming back on the show, right? Pretty soon.
We'll have Al back in Foxwoods.
Yep.
And we're going to have Siebes back in Foxwoods, and hopefully we'll have a little more humor. Because, the whole Bear humor, I'm just not going to pull punches. The whole Bear humor thing is just not funny.
You didn't like the Peanuts horse joke?
No. The Bear's humor is just not humorous. So we're going to actually go to the funnier side of the family and get Siebes back, and, I think he'll be allowed over the Connecticut border. I'm pretty sure he'll be able to clear Connecticut customs.
Oh, we're going to take another little break here, and we'll be back on Poker Road Radio, Day 3 from the North American Poker Championship. And we are back here on Day 4 of the North American Poker Championship. We are here with today's guest, Bill William Edler. Bill,
it's William Bill
Edler. It's good to have you on the show. Fresh off a win at Biloxi WPT Championship, you have had one hell of a year. Let's tell us about how you're doing so far in this tournament. 167,800 in the top 20. Things must have been going well, right?
I'm very happy with my chip count, and it is not reflective of my play.
Have you not played well?
Correct.
So far? A couple suckouts?
One notable suck out yesterday. Other than that, early on I was short and had to got it in with Ace King versus Ace Queen, which you never want to do.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I was at the same table with Gav when he did that and wasn't as lucky as I was. But then yesterday I got it in bad with what I have 8-9 of hearts. Something like 8-9 of hearts versus Ace Queen.
That's not so bad though.
But you don't want to.
But you made it sound like you get it in with like, I don't know.
No, you're right.
I think that's like a good. To me, that's getting it in pretty good.
Well, when you run as hot as I do, then that doesn't sound so bad.
But Bob, does it matter if you're the person calling or pushing? For you, would it matter?
Yeah. I'd like to be the one who's got some fold equity in the hand, but
Bill didn't have fold equity in this.
No, Bill just decided.
He had the right price though, as long as the person didn't have a pair.
I made a re-raise, and the guy came over. The guy with all the chips came over the top of me.
That's good though. At least you're willing to at least you're willing to gamble.
It wasn't a difficult call, but it wasn't a position I
wanted to be in.
Got myself into.
Now, Gavin told the story yesterday about the Ted Lawson insta-call with Ace Queen. Is that how you saw it go down too?
Well, yeah, but that didn't surprise me. He'd already made up his mind. He was committed to the hand. I didn't think it was as shocking as Gavin did.
I just think that when you raise and get someone moves in on you and you've got 1,700 committed and you're going to call 11-5 more, I mean, I don't even have a problem with him calling. I just think that you should probably at least consider it.
Well, especially since the big blind guy in the big blind had told him that he knew exactly what he had.
Yeah, I did. I told him what he had.
Now, what do you, this year has just been absolutely incredible for you. Again, a World Series bracelet. You've won over, is it 2.5 million this year alone? You just won Biloxi, 23rd in the main event, 333,000. You won the Poker Netcast Heads Up Challenge, which I commentated versus Barry Greenstein.
That's where I had the pleasure of meeting you.
Yeah.
What's the Poker Netcast? What was that?
Well, we did it.
Crystal Park.
Yeah, we did a $10,000
Crystal
heads
Where's
up.
Crystal Park?
Compton.
Straight out of Compton, brother.
Yeah, it was a great place to do. And Bill beat Barry in best 2 out of 3. I mean, what changed this year? I mean, did you change anything in terms of strategy going into this year, where all of a sudden you just absolutely exploded, or did you have a different mindset going into this year? And what can you account your success to?
Well, I've run good a few times. I play in a ton of tournaments. The guys that don't have the same chance because there's so much randomness in tournament poker. So I play in a lot, and I've played more than I have in the past. I'm pretty sure I'm a better player than I was in the past. I just started playing the tournament circuit in the summer of 2005, so just over 2 years now. So I think I've learned, but I've also run good. I mean, you mentioned this win in Biloxi, but it's been well documented that I was down to 2,000 in chips when the average was 300,000. You kind of have to run good to win, to take your 2,000 into 5 million. So it's I don't think that's something I'll ever repeat. If anyone does, it's just sometimes the stars align, and I've had a good year that way.
Now, you're second in the Card Player of the Year points. Does that mean anything to you? Are you going to be playing in any extra tournaments to try to accumulate those points? Second behind David Pham.
Could you even play in more tournaments if you wanted to? If you wanted to.
Totally could.
Well, wow. I only play in the major.
Now you only play in the major ones?
In the big buy-ins. So I could play in more of the, or any of the preliminaries. The only times I ever play less than the main events are in town, and Bellagio has a series or something. Yes, it does mean something to me. I would love to win that. It would be fun, and I may play in more tournaments in the next couple months trying to do it.
Trying to reach out. Now, if you were to place really high in this tournament, that must get you close. Did David Pham even play in this tournament?
Yes, he did. He was at my table.
And he got busted out early?
He must have.
Yeah. So if you place high, that's gonna set you closer to where.
Obviously, the higher, the better I do.
Bart's sharp as a tack this morning. Huh? I mean,
if I understand the card player point standing strictly, the higher I go. Do you know about this, Bob?
I believe the better you do, the better you do.
The more points I would get.
Right. Who's the whistling?
You know what else is cool?
Is anyone else whistling in my ear? What is that?
Something up there. But you know what else is neat, though, is the higher Bill finishes in this tournament, the more money
you'll get. Is that true, Bill? Can you confirm that the higher you finish in this tournament, the more money you'll get?
I haven't seen the payout structure.
I thought it was a little bit interesting that you got a law degree, but then you didn't go on and pass the bar. Can you tell us a little bit about how you started poker and, why'd you go to law school and not take the bar exam?
I went to law school because I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. I had been out of college for 8 years worked at Pacific Bell, which is the phone company in California. I was in finance for them. I had a nice little career going. I was making plenty of money for a 30-year-old, but realized that I kind of had to either leave or stay there forever. A lot of people that work for the phone company you see that mentality once they get a little, I only have 6 more years before my pension.
Is it true that if you work,
didn't want to get there.
is it true that the longer you work for the phone company, the more money, the more paychecks you'll receive? Is that true? Can you confirm that?
I through personal
I might
experience,
be
I don't
one
know
of the
if you read that.
shortest lived hosts on a Gavin Smith Joe Seabach show. Could be 4 days and I'm out. I could pull a Gavin Smith right now and throw my headphones right out the door.
Oh darn! Oh darn! Please don't go, Bart.
So anyway, I decided I didn't want to stay with that life the rest of my life, but I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I went to law school and enjoyed it, but knew pretty quickly that I wasn't going to want to practice. But for some reason decided to finish it off. I don't really know why, but maybe because I was enjoying it so much and I didn't have anything else to do. But while I was at law school, I did start playing some cards. Played a little club called the Oaks in Emeryville, California, which is across the bay from San Francisco. And it's where I met Teddy Park. He was not a well-known tournament player, but he's a limit hold'em cash game player who has played in the main event the last 2 years and gone deep each time. Hasn't he gone about 100th each time? It's pretty impressive for a guy who doesn't play tournaments or no limit. Anyway, during that time, it was obvious to me that I could beat the game for a living and sound like fun, sound like a challenge. That's why
Now, I read a story about Lee Jones introducing you kind of to the, one night to poker, and you started off as a low limit prop. Is that right?
Yeah, those are two different stories. Lee Jones, I didn't know. It was my birthday. Maybe I was 27 or something. I'm 43 now, and I went out with 2 friends.
Is it true that every time you have a birthday, you
get older?
Can you confirm that, though?
I've noticed that you get predictably older by about a year, but on a percentage basis, it declines, unfortunately. Yeah. Unlike in a tournament, where the payoff it increases each time. Anyway, I went to my birthday dinner, and we were seated with Lee Jones and his wife, and he talked about poker in California, and the 3 of us didn't even know. We're like, isn't gambling illegal? Even at the age of 27, I didn't know that you could play in card rooms. He said, well, where do you live? And I said, San Ramon, which is an East Bay suburb. There's a card room in San Ramon. I didn't even know that. So we were on the edge of our seats the whole night as he talked about poker with passion. This was way before, PokerStars even existed. He was just an avid player, and so the 3 of us started playing. He recommended a couple books.
Had he already written his book?
Oh, hardly.
He hadn't.
Oh, no. This is way before. I don't even know if there was electricity, let alone the internet. This is a long time ago.
One of the things that one of the guys emailed about yesterday is they were so interested in just like your way up through the cash games. And you said you just really started playing the tournament circuit in 05. So you started off playing Hold'em and then just basically worked your way up from there? Is that what happened?
Yes. Yeah, I started playing very low limit Hold'em. You asked what I did as a prop. When I left Bolt Hall, my law school, I went to Casino San Pablo, which is also in the San Francisco Bay Area. I was hired as a prop, and that's where I cut my teeth. That group had some of the finest players come out of it.
They had one of the sickest lineups of props.
You wouldn't believe the quality of the guys. Only a couple of them would become famous, but that's one of the best lineups you'll ever see, and that's where we met Eric Lindgren, among others.
And I want to talk about your relationship with Eric Lindgren in a second, but when people use the term prop, I think some people are a little bit confused. Can you just kind of explain what you did and what your job entailed?
Sure. Two similar terms, but as I understand, different terms are shill and prop. Traditionally, before, they used to have shills who would play with the house's money, and just they'd be seated in games just so that people would have someone to play with or more people to play with. I think that's probably even illegal in California, but I'm not sure. What they do now, instead of that, in most situations, if not all, is hire people who play on their own money, but they pay them to play. So that you have a shift. You might have to be there from 2 p.m. to midnight. They pay you a certain amount of time of money to be there, and they tell you what games to play in. So they move you from game to game to keep games full, to open games. So you have to be able to play any game that is offered within the house, and you have to be good enough that you can at least break even so you keep your paycheck. If you win, that's even nicer. But some props just lose their job because they can't play well enough to even stay even, and the paycheck then doesn't become necessary.
Yeah, people think, a lot of people, I used to prop too at the bike, and a lot of people would say, well, what's the downside to being a prop then? I mean, you're getting paid to play. What was your game? I mean, did they give you the ability to have any type of game selection when you were there as a prop, or you basically had to go where they told you to go?
I was a higher limit prop, in quotes. Our high game was 20-40 limit hold'em, and so I generally played that. I don't think I really played much else. We'd start, a guy named Todd Cakewon and I would start games three-handed almost every day. So one guy would come in, and then the three of us would play. So I had to play short against him, and he's a monster. I can't imagine there was anything better for my game in the long run. But so for me, it was nice. I played short-handed, which I like, and I played in a bigger game there where I was able to make some more money. For most props, the downside is it's a job. Poker players don't like jobs. They don't like to have to get up at a certain time. You have to be there at a certain time. Game selection, some people think, is a huge part of poker. You lose that as a prop. You're put in whatever game is needed for the casino's benefit, not for your own. Those are the downsides. But for those of us who like to play poker, and if you're in a situation where your bankroll can use a paycheck, it's a wonderful job.
Now, talk about your relationship. You said you met Eric Lindgren at the casino. Talk about your relationship with Eric Lindgren and Gavin here. Being on tour with them. I know Gavin told me a couple days ago that you guys are, big into sports gambling, sports betting on some college games. And Rob, I want you to get into this conversation because I find that so fascinating. Being able to handicap that for, and show a profit over the long term.
Yeah, Eric and I, the only thing we bet on together is college football. And it's our passion. It's really, truly one of my favorite things about life is betting on college football, and I think that's true about Eric too. We just love it. So in the fall and even in the summer when we're preparing, it takes up a lot of our time. And we beat it we beat it consistently. We had a losing year a couple years ago, 2 or 3 years ago. But every other year we've had a winner, and we're having a pretty significant winner again this year.
And you help your friends out with with picks. And Gavin was talking kind of your close friends.
Well, every year we do it differently. This year, we since Eric and I had been beating it, you like to share. If you've got something you think's a little valuable, you share it with your friends. If it doesn't hurt you particularly, and so in the past, sometimes we'd send out an email to people and make them bet. They could then bet the picks themselves. That was such a hassle for so many people. So now what we do is we ask people how much they want to bet a game, and we have a point system that ranks our plays. And so basically they have to tell us how much they want to bet per unit, and then we just bet it for them. And we do all the accounting, and so they lose any ability to make any selections. They have to follow our selections to the T, but then they don't have to do the hassle of putting the stuff in. And the fun is going to Eric's where he has this big screen and his 6 plasmas and a few other computers with other games on, and watching 8, 9, 10 games at a time, and everyone in the room is rooting for the same thing. It's a blast on Saturdays.
Bob, do you do something similar, like where you're just betting on college games?
Hell no. I don't invite 9 people over to my house to watch. I like to be by myself when I'm doing what I do, and I don't have a partner. I do it myself, and I definitely don't give out my picks to anybody. So I'm not as social as these guys are. I'm more of a...
Can I have your picks?
No.
The more people you give your picks to if they win, you get more and more friends.
That's probably why I have very little friends. And these guys have a lot of friends.
Well, you guys must see, both of you guys must see the amount of people, maybe on the tour, just poker players in general, that bet on sports, and it's a big leak for them, right?
That's famous. I don't see it. I mean, maybe I just don't know what people's personal life is, but people are famous for it. I mean, it's a leak for me too occasionally. When I don't bet, if I'm betting anything but college football, which I do sometimes for fun, I'm taking the worst of it. I don't know what the hell I'm doing.
Do you guys find that you do very well in the beginning of the season and progressively worse as the season progresses?
I'd say the very first 2 weeks are gold.
Yeah.
And then thereafter it's about similar.
Is that because the information goes around? I mean, it's really, really intriguing. I mean, is it that you handicap college sports better than others because there isn't as much access to information? If you go out and get it, you have more of an edge over someone else, whereas, say, the NFL or pro sports is just much more difficult because everyone has, the same type of access?
Well, I don't know if I'd say the information isn't there. It's just harder to synthesize, especially with 119 teams in college football versus whatever there is in the pros, around 30, 32, depending on your sport.
It's a function of how the odds makers make their lines. They use certain statistical data that just isn't available in the first few weeks of the season. So subjective handicappers have an advantage in the first few weeks of the season because they just don't have enough data to make an accurate line. Whereas as the season progresses, the odds makers are able to make a more accurate line based on the more data they have, the more data subsets they have.
For example, in college football, there's something called the Sagarin power rating or whatever, and that's used. They take the final scores, and they can run a regression analysis based on Team X played Team Y, Team Y played Team Z, and the more the teams are connected and have played each other, the better your power rating can be mathematically. And in a situation where there are only about 30 teams, of course they play each other more often and are more mathematically connected. So people who do mathematical power ratings in a smaller league like the pros can have better lines, and then there is better information on if you know about Shaquille O'Neal, if he's out or not. But if the starting quarterback at Louisiana Monroe is hurt, people either don't know or they don't care or they don't know how important it is.
And it's also a function of certain teams are certain people who bet in a certain way. I'm not sure how Bill and Eric make their sports picks, but I know a lot of successful sports gamblers who make their picks using regression analysis. And if a statistical handicapper is on the same team 3 weeks in a row, by week 4, probably even by week 3, the line they'll just automatically make their line. They'll say, let's just give this team an extra 1.5 just because we know that it's been a favorite team.
Right, we must either be wrong on them or at least that's where the money will go.
Do you look at those pattern trends? I mean, it's almost like they can pick out a stat in sports gambling for either side where, this team, when they beat, a team from the NFC on turf the week before has been 8-0 against the line the week after when they're home on grass against a team that's, worse than 4-4. Something really complex like that. It's almost like you can pull a stat out for everything. You look at those types of stats as well?
Not at all.
No, I'm not sure. I mean, there's some. Yeah, I think those stats are pretty ridiculous. I think you could, like you said, you can tailor a stat to fit any situation. I think more important stats, if you're going to look at stats in football or college football or any type of football, certain things like yards per play, average yards per play given up on defense and offense, those are things that are more relevant than how a team does on grass off a day off when they've had potato salad.
That stuff it really isn't statistically significant because if you set a limit, like you want to be really sure, you have to be 99% sure that it's not randomness, but that there's actually a causal relationship. Right. Well, if you cut it 1,000 different ways,
right,
you're going to get 10 just due to random that are going to look like they've beat your 99% confidence level. So the more you cut things, the more randomly you're going to get things that look like they're statistically significant, but they just aren't. It's just because you've cut it without theory. What you need to do is have a theory first, and then look at the stats based on that one theory. If it meets your statistical significance criterion, then you can make a better inference. Otherwise, you're probably just looking at something random, like that the team plays well on turf on Tuesdays, whatever. It's silly.
And one of the other things too, before we let you go, because I know you got to go in there for day 3, is
he's got a tournament to win.
Yeah, got a tournament to win. When a line opens, now is the goal of an odds maker when they set a line to open to get even bets on both sides, and then the line moves with what the public is betting on both sides. If they're getting more bets on the dog, it moves down and such. Is that how they set the line?
The goal is to make a line which will generate equal action, but that never happens. Your goal is to make 100 lines on a college football Saturday and to have equal action on all, where if you could just somehow juice out and make money on the 100 games. But in terms of each game's getting equal action, you may have 10 games where you're completely lopsided on one side and 10 games where you're completely lopsided on the other side, and your goal is to kind of break even on those 10 on those spots.
And are you guys usually hopping on the opening line?
No, because we're not prepared in time.
You probably can't bet as much money either. The opening line.
That is now the biggest problem too.
Yeah, so it's tough.
And where they have limits on all these different sites before you can make a certain bet with a certain line. Is that how it works?
We're betting enough now that
You have to wait.
we have to wait often, sometimes even to game time, or game day.
Well, I think that was definitely an interesting little insight into sports gambling. Bill Edler, I want to thank you for stopping by. Good luck
Bardo,
on the
pleasure to see
tournament.
you.
We hope you continue your great run and hope you get there and overtake David Pham for the Player of the Year.
Thank you. Again, if someone would look this up, I need to advance this. The further I advance, this is going to help me in the.
I'm almost positive. I'm almost positive, but I'm sure some of our listeners will send us messages to let us know for sure. But I think if you were to move up the rankings, you'll get more points.
It's still not clear to me, listeners. If you could somehow communicate with the hosts other examples in life that would be analogous to that, that would probably be. Very
I will
helpful.
say also, when you get out there, your goal is to get as many chips as
Yeah.
possible.
The more chips you get, the better chance you have of moving
winning.
up.
And if you get all the chips, I think you get a lot of the money.
But not all the money. Now I'm really confused.
You better go now before we completely turn your world upside down.
Gentlemen, it was a pleasure.
So thanks a
Good
lot.
luck, bro.
And we will be back here to wrap things up on Poker Road Radio.
Want to learn how to play poker like multiple prelim event winner Joe Seabach? Or perhaps you want to learn how to bubble the TV final table over and over and over again. The Bear taught Seabach, and let him teach you. PokerRoad.com is the only site where you can get exclusive audio tips from poker champion Barry Greenstein. Click on Tips from the Bear to download the podcast today.
And here we go, wrapping things up from the Falls View Casino Resort in Niagara Falls, Ontario. Gavin Smith with Harbolas Bulgaris.
Wow.
Harbolas.
Oh, God, I knew it. I knew I was going to screw the name up. I just
Harbolas.
knew
It
it couldn't
took
be
2
two
days.
days.
Harbolas, how are you?
That's why I kept saying Bob. Did you notice that?
Hey.
It's a struggle. But they said you were a laid-back guy and you wouldn't mind.
No, I don't care. Harbolos is doing good.
You know, the Niagara Falls is right down there, right? I haven't actually really had the opportunity to go out there and check it out, but maybe I will after the show.
You should do that today. It's a
it
wonderful
nice?
site. Yeah.
It is nice.
Is it nice? I want to thank you for coming by and co-hosting
Thanks
for the
for
last
having
2
me.
days.
I'd like to thank you for that too, Bob.
You're welcome.
You guys have any picks on who you think's going to, take this tournament down?
I will pick 2 people that I think will do very well. One of them will be Bill Edler, and the other one will be Nick Schulman, maybe, hopefully.
What about you at this stage?
I got to like his picks because they're both on the team that I drafted. But I also think you got to watch out for Peter Feldman. I think he's going to play great. And, you got to give a little credit where credit's due. Joe Cassidy's a great player and has a lot of chips. He's a great player, has a lot of chips. So
very good player.
I think he's going to be up there too.
Well, with that, we will say goodbye. Join us tomorrow here on Poker Road Radio.